Welcome back to the channel. Islam Makhachev won yesterday in a fight that we all saw. A beautiful fight, really. And it just made me think, right? After the JDM fight, after he won against JDM, there wasn't really that much interesting talks. But after what we seen from Ian Garry yesterday, there's very interesting talks we have to discuss. Um, I had a fight 3-2 in a closer fight. The judges saw it a different way, but nevertheless, there was instances and moments in the fight, just little sequences that we don't usually see from Islam Makhachev. Now, I think these are interesting to talk about because when the JDM fight was happening and when JDM lost, I mean, there was nothing interesting to talk about besides him scratching his head, right? There was really nothing interesting to talk about. We had Islam controlling him for quite a quite a long time, and JDM really just looked lost out there. I don't even think there was like matchup talks about JDM even going around in the YouTube space, just because JDM looked lost. And with Ian Garry, even though there was control time on Islam Makhachev's side and there was takedowns happening, it never looked like Ian Garry was lost. And that's why I think it's very important. Some people say that they didn't like this fight or whether it was boring or not. But I think the interesting thing about this fight and the interesting thing that we could pull from this fight is actually just the discussion alone. The discussion of why Ian Garry actually looked good in there, right? Like why he actually looked pretty decent. There was instances where Ian Garry would get taken down and you'll see him do the right things. You saw the urgency in Ian Garry, and I've always explained this. Ian Garry is a super smart fighter. I've always preached that. 10 months ago I made a video on that explaining 30 minutes of him versus Carlos Prates, someone who is a contender in the same weight class and is probably next up for a title shot against Islam Makhachev. And I always explained he was a smart fighter. But the urgency we saw from Ian Garry was just beautiful. I mean, the things he was doing the right things to get up from his feet. Islam Makhachev was still doing Islam Makhachev type of stuff, still getting damage on positions where he had him in a body lock or he had him in a vulnerable position. But those positions didn't last as long or didn't come to the outcomes that we usually expect from Islam Makhachev. And like I said, I think it makes it interesting. It makes it definitely interesting. To me, Ian Garry had the right idea and had the right, almost damn near right technique to do the things he did in that fight to make it more of an interesting fight and to have a better chance at winning, right? Ian Garry going to the fence, just little things like this, because once he's at the fence, Islam cannot get around to that right side, right? Now Islam has to focus on getting his left leg on that left side again, over Ian's left leg. But what Ian was doing a great job of, and you see Islam tries to go and put that left leg over. If we have another camera angle to the left, you'll see that Ian puts his elbow and kind of forearm over his left leg, over his own left leg, to where Islam cannot put his left leg over his and get that trip over. We saw instances where even in the clinch where Islam was putting his body weight on him. We saw instances where 30, 40 seconds would play out and all of a sudden Machado Gary's on that front position, right? Just things we've never seen before. And I think it makes an interesting conversation for a rematch. That's all. I feel like JDM and even past opponents in the past, there was really no interesting conversations for a rematch. I think the only thing I could think of for Islam Makhachev was like Volkanovski, of course, right? And Volkanovski was such a high-level fighter that I feel like people even expected that maybe going into the first fight, that maybe Volk had a chance of winning it or even a chance of making it close. Therefore, we saw a rematch in the foreseeable future, and it was easier to see. With this, there was so many people hating on Ian Garry. I mean, if you've been on Twitter for the past couple days, the hate on Ian Garry. You know how many people dislike Ian Garry, and still, even after the fight, they don't like him showing respect. They don't like they just don't like him, bro. And I've always said You got to take the personality out of a fighter when you're looking to break down a fight. You got to take out the bias out of a fighter. If you can't take those two things out, you shouldn't be breaking down fights. Point blank, period. And when it comes to this fight, it was just a beautiful thing to see because I knew Ian Garry was smart in there. I knew he was going to have and he was going to cause some trouble. And I think the most thing that was doing really good for him was these body kicks right here, man. That shit was landing all day for him. Every time he threw that, it was really like landing in the perfect spot to where you saw like Islam tuck the elbow right after. He was setting it up well as well. Ian Garry's a very good back foot fighter. And so when we saw instances like these where like he is getting backed up, I knew Ian Garry wasn't uncomfortable, right? And I think if you check this whole fight, if you genuinely check this whole fight, there's never been instances, even when Ian Garry was in positions like this, where he was super uncomfortable, like super out of his element, still thinking, still trying to do the right things. In a position like this, we see Islam Makhachev take people's legs, wrap them around his, and they start squirming. We saw it in the first round with JDM. Bro, in this position, Ian, to me, didn't look like he was super uncomfortable. You know what I saw? I saw urgency. I saw urgency against the cage. I saw urgency trying to get this wrist control. I saw urgency trying to not let him get his back and him having his buttocks super high. So when when Islam eventually does or tries to maneuver and get a better position on his back, Islam is too high or too low, right? Him being a longer fighter also helps with that. And I think he knew that as well. These body shots right here, when there was pauses in the clinch, a lot of the times in this clinch, let's be real, Islam really wasn't working. I'm going to be real. Islam really wasn't working. I've seen fights where they've been in the clinch for 30 seconds, no work, and there's been fighters break it up. Referees break it up. Islam was working in some of these clinches, and in some of the exchanges in these clinches, he wasn't working. And it was nice to see that Ian Garry said, you know what? If we're going to stay here for the next 30 seconds, I'm going to at least get some damage. I'm going to at least do something to maneuver. Great takedown here from Islam Makhachev. And this is the regular Islam Makhachev that we were hoping to see. But even in this fall, where he picks him up and damn near puts him on his head, we see urgency in the fact that, boom, he gets right back up. Like, right back up to the cage. So that Islam isn't taking that right side control. Bro, the things we saw from Ian was like, it was little things that was just beautiful. Again, somewhere where it was an exchange where the last 20 seconds, Islam Makhachev, and really in this, this is the fourth round, not the fifth. In these last 20 seconds in this fourth round, we saw Islam Makhachev, holding against the cage. Just the idea of him trying to get underhooks and little damages across the face was just great to me. Because if you're going to sit here, at least do something, right? If Islam is going to sit here and hold this body lock right, at least do something. You already tried to get out and you see that he's holding your weight against you. Let's score some points. Why not? Why not? And this is what I'm saying. The adjustments need to be made because now he needs to know, okay, that's not going to be enough. But I'm not mad at the fact that he even tried that in the first fight. Because it makes it easier in the second fight knowing that, okay, that might not be enough, but I could still do that and still be active in this clinch when situations come to this, when the pace dies down. And the pace was never high either for Islam Makhachev. Dustin Poirier versus Islam Makhachev was a very higher pace. And I thought, going back to that fight, man, Dustin might have gave him his best work. I disagree now. With Ian Garry, and even before the fight, I felt Ian Garry was going to be his best matchup. Just really beautiful exchanges. And we saw the boxing of Islam Makhachev look very normal. Normal. Like it is, because it is normal. I've always explained that Islam Makhachev, his boxing is primarily, gonna be honest, guys, primarily on the takedown effect, the Islam Makhachev effect, because the idea of the takedowns, JDM's boxing was completely neutralized, not because of the fact that Islam's boxing was so good, but because his grappling was so good. It couldn't work this fight. It couldn't neutralize Ian Garry's striking all the way. it neutralized maybe the output of the striking. And I think that's where Ian Garry needs to work on as well. So many things we could talk about in this fight. So many things that Ian Garry did well. So many things that he did wrong. So many things that Islam did well. So many things that he did wrong. To not make it a more definitive win, right? Nevertheless, he won the fight. And that's why I think it's interesting, because with even Islam winning the fight, with him still being double champ, there still could be talks like this. I can still talk and tell you, man, in a second fight, in a rematch, pace might look different. Pace actually might look more like a brawl, like a fight. You know, this pace was definitely slower. Definitely a technician match. Beautiful shot right there from Islam. Again, Ian Garry has great, great urgency. And when he doesn't have to use his urgency, even before this, he has great balance. Great balance. And when he has to use his urgency, he will. Just great urgency. We're gonna get up. We're gonna go to the cage immediately. Immediately, we're gonna go to the cage. Because we know we don't want to stay in the middle of the mat. Right? Islam wants this in the middle of the mat. We don't want to be in the middle of the mat. As far as Ian Garry, we're going to go to the cage. And we're going to, as soon as we go to the cage, we're going to attack the hands. I mean, really, things are beautiful. Even him having this knee here, so that way Islam can't knee him in the process of him holding this clinch. Bro, there was studying done. There was things involved. And this ultimately was the factor here, right? This was the beginning of the end for Ian Garry. This ultimately what won Makhachev the fight. But if you go to every Makhachev fight, it never came down. It really never came down to like the last takedown. You could mention Volkanovski. But even in a rematch with Volkanovski came in on short notice. Gets head kicked in the first round. I truly think if Ian comes prepared and we have the same type of build-up in a rematch, I truly think that it will come down to another fifth round. I'm going to be honest, guys. It will come down to another fifth round. And it might look a little different. In terms of the pace, in terms of different techniques we're going to have to see now, and in terms of adjustments. One thing I love about rematches, and one thing I love about breaking down rematches, is that you don't have to even look too far. You don't even have to look at the recent fights. You don't even have to look at the fight they're going to have after this. Islam says he wants to fight one more time before Ramadan. You don't even have to look at that fight if he does have that fight, right? You could keep that fight in the back of your mind. But you don't even have to look at a fight like that. The best thing about rematches, as someone breaking down rematches, is the fact that all you have to do is look at the first fight again and understand and see who is going to make the better adjustments. That's why I love rematches so much. That's why I love breaking down rematches. I hope in the future a rematch does happen, because then we'll have better discussion going into it. And it'll be even crazier to see, hey, if Ian Garry wins, now we have even more discussion on a trilogy. And that makes everything bigger. Everything bigger. Because now we have a rivalry, right? If Ian Garry potentially wins that second match. And I'm not saying he gets that second match right away. I think if Islam wants to fight before Ramadan, before February, I think he'll fight probably Carlos or Morales. Ian Garry would probably either take time off, or who knows, maybe he has another fight. But I think with those two lining up and probably maybe having a fight or taking time off by the end of the year, I think we might see a rematch in 2027. It will lead to some great discussions, man. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think about Islam's performance, Ian's performance. Let me know what adjustments do you think is going to be made. Let me know what you guys think, man. I love the fact that, I'm going to be honest, UFC, we had a Conor McGregor event, main event, like fucking completely ruined. besides the Ilya Taporia, loss. I mean, it's really UFC really hasn't been standout this year. I enjoyed this one because it made me think and it made me really hope, and I like to see what's in the future next, right? And 170 is getting interesting. It's getting interesting now. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let's discuss. I'm open for it. I love you guys. Peace.